People just want to pay for that convenience and that hassle-free experience. And that's where we came in and designed this to be that hands-off approach where you get to just enjoy the upside of owning a pool and not all the headaches of it. I'm a huge spreadsheet guy. I love all that preparation and behind-the-scenes stuff, but eventually you've got to launch and be prepared to figure it out. The true grit in entrepreneurship is being committed to figuring out today's problem and solution. Those kind of commitments have really given us a lot of grace with our customers, and they've reciprocated their appreciation in spades over the years.
Give our listeners a rundown of what you do, what your business is, and then we can get into the backstory.
Yeah, we're a very unique business. Most people haven't heard of it because we were the first and only to pioneer this space. Our business is called Now Pools. We are an on-demand pool and spa company, subscription company. So what that really means in reality is that our clients sign up for a subscription. With that subscription, we go out and we set up an above-ground pool for them. And then we take care of weekly cleaning, maintenance, chemicals, all the headaches of pool ownership or spa ownership. And then at the end of the subscription, we remove the pool or spa and you get your yard back. So it's a great combination of having relief when the heat is on and getting your yard back when maybe it's not so hot out.
So you're in Phoenix area. Have you expanded this into other areas? Maybe people who are consumers are listening to this being like, okay, how do I get into this magic here in Utah or other places?
That is what we are looking at right now. We are going down the franchising path for our business model, and that is what we're looking to do. Is we get inquiries from all around the country, especially when we're hitting triple digits around the country right now. People are wanting this service in their area, even as far away and as cold a climates as Maine. We've gotten requests for this business. Obviously, there's a little bit smaller window, but people are looking for this service all around the country. So we're trying to figure out a scalable way to bring in all over the country and even beyond the US.
Okay, well, I'm excited to get into the nitty gritty of this because
Yeah.
I want to know numbers. I want to understand like how you landed on, because I'm very aware now that you say it. It's one of those things where you're like, well, yeah, that is a problem. Like, duh. Somebody listening to this might be like, well, let me know when the franchise is available because that is a problem I personally need solved and I would love to solve that for others. My mom right now is getting quotes for a pool. And when you look at the price tag of putting in a permanent fixture, not to mention the maintenance and everything after that, it really has to be a pretty big commitment. It has to be an all-in thing. So talk to me about how you even found that gap in the marketplace and where that awareness came from.
Yeah, like many entrepreneurs, especially small business and startup ideas, I was the first client. I have two, they're now teenagers, but they were much younger when we started this. And I felt the pain in Phoenix, Arizona, where it is scorching hot in the middle of the summer and it is tough to send your kid outside if you don't have a pool. But looking at the price tag of being anywhere from $75,000 to $150,000, you can spend even much more on an in-ground pool depending on your part of the country. And I quite frankly didn't want to spend that because I wasn't really sure if we were going to use it all that much, but I thought we needed something for 3 or 4 months of the year when it's really hot here in Arizona. So going into this, felt the pain or the problem of wanting and needing a pool for our kids, but didn't want to spend all that money and lose our yard space. We have a pretty good sized yard, but putting an in-ground pool in would really take up most of our yard and we wouldn't be able to use it for 7 to 9 months of the year, depending on what we're doing outside. And so I didn't want to lose all that space. I was hoping there would be a temporary solution. Thus, the above ground pool popped in my head. And the next problem was that I didn't know anything about pools, above ground pools, setting them up, maintaining the chemicals. And so I thought about that problem for a little while and thought that there must be more people like me that wanted that temporary solution, didn't really understand anything about them, didn't want to spend days upon days installing one and then trying to figure out the chemical balancing process. And so people just want to pay for that convenience and that hassle-free experience. And that's where we came in and designed this to be that hands-off approach, the hassle-free experience where you get to just enjoy the upside of owning a pool and not all the headaches of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I know that there were probably more problems that presented themselves, especially as you started to bring this at scale and everybody's yard's different. You have different situations. But even on a basic level, as you started looking to solve this for yourself, you mentioned not knowing how to balance chemicals. What were some of the other just core lessons that you and research that you had to do to find the type of quality pool? Like, where were you getting this? What were you starting to look at in terms of how do we make this a uniform experience?
Yeah, I wish I could say that there was more strategy involved in some of the deeper research that we did early on. Some of it was guessing and figuring out the headaches once we ran into them. With above ground pools, the filtration is probably one of the number one things that goes into making sure it's a clear and clean pool. And a lot of the pool pumps that come on a standard above ground pool are just good enough, but they're not necessarily equipped to handle people using and abusing the pools like some of our clients want to do, and rightfully so. And so that was something we had to adjust to on the fly, is figuring out what was the right equipment in order to give people the experience they expect. Again, a lot of people have never had an above ground pool, or they have only swam in an in ground pool, which is great. Our product is not that, but people still hold us to a high standard as far as the cleanliness, and the clarity of the water, and things like that. And so we are trying to provide as close to that in ground pool experience for them as we possibly can. And so I often say that we have made every mistake in the book leading to where we are. And that's part of the challenge and fun of entrepreneurship, is that we've made plenty of mistakes. And the true grit in entrepreneurship is being committed to figuring out today's problem and solution. And that is all I can really vouch for, is that we are committed to figuring things out as we hit those stumbling blocks along the way.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you can do. It's that or you are done, right?
Yeah.
You really only have two options at any given point in building a business. Like, are we going to keep pushing through this and find the solution? Or do we fold? Do we cave? And that's the end of that. I love that. So, even in those early stages, were you already looking forward to, like, we want to build this as a business, so let's look for the lowest cost for the highest quality pools? Were you offering variety yet in terms of sizing, or were you just focusing on, let's do one type of pool for one type of person? And tell me about what that was like with just pricing research. Like, were you buying a pool at Walmart and then going and setting it up for someone? Did you have any kind of uniformity there?
Yeah. So the focus early on was really simplifying the options. I realized that, there's probably 50 different size pools and shapes and things like that. And there's plenty of variety out there as far as the size and depth. And what I wanted to do is really just meet the needs of, call it 80 to 90% of clients. Our pools are a pretty good size, but we offer three different size pools. And I would say we rarely, maybe one or two people a year, try to sign up for a pool subscription from us and aren't able to fit one of our pools in their backyard. It's going to fit most backyards. Again, we have three different sizes. Our smallest one meeting most, it's going to fit in 99 out of 100 backyards. So I knew I didn't want to overwhelm the consumer as far as the number of choices and get them bogged down, because it's already a difficult enough idea to trust, in the sense that it isn't an industry out there that has a lot of examples that you just automatically know what you're getting into. I wanted to make it as frictionless as possible of a sign up process. Yes, the idea of getting a temporary pool and we take care of the chemicals and the setup and all that stuff, it does make sense when you hear it. But because it's so new, I didn't want to have consumers overthink the process and end up backing out of it. If they were examining between two different pool sizes that were 1 foot difference here and there, or a slightly different shape, I didn't want them to back out of the process. So I knew that the overall selection really needed to be clean and simple. And so we've stuck with our three different size pools from the very beginning, and it's really served us pretty well. Our initial purchase was diving into the deep end, if you will, no, maybe a pun intended, but we bought about 45 pools to start in the three different sizes, and really jumped in hoping that people would sign up, but not being certain. And so we were able to get early adopters, and it was during the pandemic, which was a fantastic boost for us. Obviously, a lot of other downsides to it. But for us, people were stuck at home. They were looking for a solution. And thankfully, we kind of launched at the right time and were able to take advantage of some of that pent up demand and energy, and even a little bit of infused finances for some people during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's super smart. I love that. And I think that translates across the board for other business owners is we have a tendency to want to make sure we provide something for everyone. We don't want to leave any options off the board. And in so doing, we can overwhelm the customer. We can actually hurt our sales by overcomplicating the whole process. Everybody, decision fatigue is real for all of us at any level, especially when, you go beyond a certain price point. Yes, we're not spending $100,000 on a pool, but we're still spending a significant amount of money. It's not something that we want to feel like we're going to make the wrong choice. So by giving too many options, it gives a little more of that like fear of what if I pick wrong? What if that extra foot would have been all the difference and made our summer better? And so, yeah, I think leaning into that is really smart, and helping people to make an educated decision without even having to think that hard about it is definitely the right direction. I can see how that would have helped eliminate some of the confusion early on. So when it came to the pool selection, you mentioned you bought 45 pools. Were you buying these from a store? Were you looking and researching online? If it was during the pandemic, I'm sure you weren't necessarily feeling confident ordering from overseas at that point. And has that changed? I'm curious what it was
Yeah.
then and if it's still the same now.
So we did buy them from overseas directly from a manufacturer
Interesting.
overseas, which was, again, a learning process in and of itself. They eventually arrived. There was delays, and that was entrepreneurial headaches for sure, and learned a lot about the manufacturing process and delivery dates and all that stuff. But we settled in on a manufacturer that actually has a US headquarters here in the United States, here in Arizona, and they've been great from us. Now, for us, we can directly purchase from them, and we have a great relationship with them, and they've really streamlined our process and obviously gained some advantageous pricing with our scaling and longevity of a relationship. And that's been fantastic. And I would say for depending on the business you're in, finding those key relationships and really pouring into them, even when you're small and you don't, maybe you're not going to make a huge impact on their bottom line. If you can sell the vision of where your business is headed, you can really gain some trusted allies in the manufacturing space if you are able to approach those folks and really show them where you are today and then where you're headed, and continue to nurture that relationship, because there's been plenty of times where it's already paid off for us over the past few years, where they have really supported us in certain situations, again, given us advantageous pricing, knowing that we probably, quite frankly, didn't deserve it based on our scale. But they understand where we're headed with the brand, and they're willing to support us and want to see us succeed. And that's been huge on our end for the business.
Amazing. So let's leap forward a little bit. You bought 45 pools. Were you able to find clients for all of those in that first summer because it was the time that it was?
Yeah, yes. So again, I wasn't sure if one person would sign up or we would sell out. Thankfully, when we finally got the pools and started delivering them, within 2 weeks, we were sold out. So that was a pretty awesome way to launch. And at that moment in time, I thought, man, we are going to sell out instantly every summer. This is going to be amazing. Of course, reality has hit, and we've had to do a little more marketing and had to push a little bit harder. And that's still something we are challenged with each year, each summer. But we've gradually scaled up year over year and been able to sell out, and it's been great. Again, I know that there is more demand. I am thankful that we didn't start out with, say, 100 pools or even more, because our problems would have been magnified significantly and may have sunk us, quite frankly. Each year we've had a problem of the summer, I would say, and we've had to really figure that out. And sometimes there's many more than just a single problem. But I know that if we had to face all of those problems all at once at scale early on, we probably would not have been able to overcome it. Of course, anything is possible. However, I'm grateful at the limited scale we have been. And that's why we didn't force expansion across the country, even though we've gotten calls and requests from around the country. But I knew that there were more problems to uncover here in Phoenix, and I didn't want to do that in multiple locations where I couldn't simply drive to a client's house and try to help fix the problem. I needed to be able to fix those all under a limited architecture of the business where we weren't completely scaling. Yes, we were growing, but I didn't want to expand the problem beyond what we could fix fairly easily.
So would you say you've said kind of had a problem of each summer, little chosen
Yeah.
problem of the year, like what's it going to be this time? Can you share with us what some of those have been? Have they been a lot of them just like pool based? Has it been business based, like client? What are some of those key issues been that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I would say our client base has been amazing and they've given us a lot of grace. And I think there's some reasons why we've gotten grace from our customers that is more than just luck. We've leaned into the experience. We've tried to make it a personalized experience. We really have for what might seem like a hands-off business, we try to lean in as much as possible with touch points to be able to make them feel like we're here for them. We're here to support them. We're not going to be perfect, but we're going to be committed to fixing whatever their challenges or maybe a complaint on a specific day. We're going to fix that. We're going to fix it as quickly as possible for them. Those kind of commitments have really given us a lot of grace with our customers, and they've reciprocated their appreciation in spades over the years. As far as the problems that we've faced, it's everything from equipment that wasn't as robust as that we probably needed to have at that time, given the specific pools that we were using. We've had to upgrade equipment over the years. We've had issues where we can use a pool liner for multiple seasons. And there were times where, quite frankly, the pool liner wasn't up to our standards. It probably didn't meet the client standards. And we installed pools that I would say I wasn't necessarily proud of. And we had to fix the problem, make it right with that customer. And each year there's been a new problem as it related. I would say now it's been more, how do we grow beyond organic growth? Obviously, word of mouth has been huge for us with this kind of concept. Social media has been great with clients sharing things on their social media channels. But obviously, at a certain point, you have to grow beyond people just telling their friends and family about it. And that's what we've been facing over the last year or so, is just how do we scale this thing to people to make not only gaining market share, but really creating a market in and of itself, because people don't know this exists. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create that entire market and then capture market share. So it is a problem that I wouldn't say we're perfect at, but we continue to strive to.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is universal. It speaks to like the entrepreneur experience. And I love that you mentioned early on, you wouldn't have wanted to be at scale yet because it would have probably crumbled you, because there are so many little fundamental things. And you have to give yourself that time to have the product development, the product enhancement. So it's not just, okay, buy the pool, set it up. There's all these things you don't even know you don't know when it comes to quality control and maintenance and timing and what you're actually going to have to pay people and what your margins really are going to be. And it just takes time to play around with that and actually work it. You know, there's only so much that theoretical planning on a spreadsheet can get you when it's also a thing that's never been done before and doesn't exist. So it makes perfect sense that you gave yourself that time before expanding. And now I'm sure as you're looking into expansion, into franchising and whatever, you have a lot more confidence knowing the product is pretty dialed in and you can scale it, right? Like you're at a pretty sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would double down on what you talked about as far as your launching timeline and getting things dialed in and perfect on a spreadsheet. I'm a huge spreadsheet guy. I love all that kind of preparation and behind the scenes stuff. But eventually you've got to launch and be prepared to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to run into problems. That is where the learning opportunities lie. I would say our website, we've probably had 3 or 4 different iterations based on not only our product offering, but our clients' appetite and experience. I mean, early on, we bought all these accessories that we thought we could upsell clients to. And we bought them in bulk and had them sitting in our warehouse. And the reality is we learned we couldn't compete with Amazon. Amazon can deliver everything tomorrow or within an hour or two. And we needed to streamline the sign up process even more and really only offer accessories that people couldn't compare to Amazon, couldn't necessarily get on next day. And so we trimmed our accessory offering way down to really only like pool experiential offerings. And all that stuff is learning. And if you launch with every iteration possible and thinking through every single opportunity, making this gigantic offering, more than likely you will find out that only a small percentage of your offering is really what your clients are looking for. And so being able to You launch with what you believe is a good product and meets the market demand, and then being willing to be flexible in your thinking so that you can iterate quickly. Again, that's one of the benefits of us not being huge is that we're a speedboat versus a big company being a cruise liner or something like that. We're able to shift in the waters very quickly and change our offering, change our website on at the drop of a dime. And so that's our advantage of being small. There's plenty of disadvantages of being small, but you got to lean into the advantages, and being able to be agile as a business owner really key when we're smaller like we are right now.
Yeah. So talk numbers to me a little bit. When you're looking at, I'm curious about employees, how many pools can you manage with how many people? What are people spending on this? Because that's a huge gap between going and spending $600 on a pool at Costco. I'm just like off the top of my head, I know
Yeah.
we bought one once for my parents' backyard and we tried twice to fill it up and did not realize how unlevel the backyard was. So I want to talk about that issue too. What you need as far as qualification to even be able to use your service, and if you draw the line somewhere in what you do and don't cover. But even just pricing, like what are people spending to have this service? You offer different tiers of we'll just set it up and then we'll come take it down, or included in that. Does everybody have to do the maintenance? So just talk through those nitty-gritty business model details with me.
Yeah, definitely nerd out on it. There's a lot to discuss here, but kind of some of the basic numbers are our subscriptions start at $575 a month, $575 a month. And that basically, the longer you sign up for the subscription, the cheaper it becomes. We've actually introduced what we call our annual pass, which I can talk about at an even lower price point. But for pools specifically, it's $575 a month for the two smaller size pools for our 4-month subscription or more. Now, as you go for a shorter subscription or our largest pool, the price increases up to $825 per month. And so that all those prices are all inclusive. And that again was by design, not only what I wanted as a consumer. I personally like all in pricing. I don't want to be nickel and dimed and feel like I'm missing out if I don't upgrade to this other part of the package. So for me, it's got to be all inclusive pricing. I didn't want people to, again, get hung up on the friction of the sign up process and think, should I add this part or shouldn't I? Everything is meant to be hassle free. We don't charge clients when, occasionally things break. These are above ground pools. They are not your $150,000 in-ground pool, which certainly has its maintenance challenges as well. We understand that things are going to break, and most of our clients are okay with that because we're committed to figuring out how do we get there quickly to swap this hose out or whatever the case may be. So all of our pricing includes all that. We don't charge extra for any of those things. We have had folks that were interested in maintaining their own pool. That is not really something we offer, again, because we feel like these are above ground pools are a little more finicky than your in-ground pools. They do take some extra understanding of the chemicals and filtration and things like that. Not that they're super difficult, but that they are unique and it is a hands-on experience. And we want to make sure it's a good experience for our clients. So we don't want to set them up to fail by maintaining it themselves, and then a month and a half into their subscription, the pool's green, they're upset, they want it removed. Things like that would certainly happen if we ask clients to take care of it themselves. And so we basically are there on a weekly basis to maintain the pool. And again, even with that on a weekly basis, things happen. Occasionally pools will go green. And that has been part of the challenges, is like, how do we get them back swimming again? What's the fastest way to get this client experience rescued so that they are getting what they pay for, not a swamp in their backyard? So there's plenty to dive in that part as well. But yeah, it's the overall experience, the most common, or I should say the average subscription is about 3.1 months. We're a little bit higher this year. It's 3.6 months. And again, that's some pricing factors. Temperature is a huge factor in our selling process. So all those things combined, again, all learning experience. I thought early on that people were going to all want it 5 or 6 months of the year, because in Phoenix, you can swim for 5 or 6 months. And the reality is a lot of people just wanted it while their kids were out of school. So it ended up being 2 and 3 month subscriptions. So we have pricing to support that. Again, all learning experiences that weren't exactly what I would have penciled out on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, just having to take it to market and see what people actually wanted. Okay, now let's talk about the profitability. And we don't have to get super, super specific into numbers, but on average, how many people does it take to run how many pools? If you started with your 45,
Yeah.
how many are you up to right now? And then what does the team look like to support that? And as you've expanded even regionally, have you got multiple offices, multiple teams that manage different areas of Phoenix?
So we are a heavily seasonal business. So as you can imagine, our labor team, they will scale up and scale down based on our needs as a company. We have one warehouse in the greater Phoenix area. Phoenix is pretty large for folks that aren't familiar with it, but we service basically every area, the greater Phoenix metro valley, as they might refer to it as. So we basically have our service routes in each day of the week. Our team members are going out to different areas of the valley to service those. Right now we have 4 total team members, and I would say each team member, depending on their availability. Some of our team members, they work part-time here for Now Pools, and they might have a different job in the evenings. But each team member can probably handle about, call it maybe 30 pools a week. And so some can handle more, some less, again, depending on their availability. So we will be at about 115 pools this season. We've incrementally scaled up each year. And then obviously, as we alluded to earlier, we also started offering spas this season, which aren't a big seller in the summer in Phoenix, understandably, but are a nice luxury in the greater Phoenix area, spring, fall, and winter time.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that next. Are you making substantially enough and I know you're still pretty new, right? Like only 5 years old or so. Is that money that you're bringing in every summer enough to sustain? Is that the only thing that you do and it's a great seasonal job? Or is it still like it takes a little while to build that up and you're using the spas as another way to offset and keep something going through multiple seasons of the year?
Yeah, so the extreme seasonality was one of those challenges early on, and understanding that our revenue spike was great in the summer. The rest of the season, the rest of the year, everything was dormant, and we were just scraping by to keep the lights on in the winter time. And so the spas were really an offering to lessen that curve. Now in Phoenix, the summer is always going to be bigger. Pool demand for pools is going to be much larger than the spas. But I think as we expand to other locations around the country, I think that could flip a little bit in that I still think that there'll be a high demand for call it 3 to 4 months in the summer for pools, but that the wintertime spa business would end up evening out the revenue across 12 months of the year. So that was an introduction. Basically 2 years ago, we started offering spas, and that has been slowly growing and really helping us not bleed money in the off season. And so that has been really nice supplemental part of the business. But obviously we scale down our team. And so our seasonal labor will peter out at the end of the summer once we start taking down all the pools, and we'll have a pretty lean labor pool in the winter time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I kind of mentioned and alluded to this where he's tried to set up a pool. It looked like the Titanic as it was sinking, like it was very not level on the ground. What do you guys do in that instance? Like, as part of the setup process to level the ground, did they have to do that ahead of time? Like, how have you come in and solved that, which is a kind of a big one? A lot of people don't have perfectly level spaces for a pool.
Yes, it is true. Thankfully in Phoenix, we don't deal a ton with that, but that is not something we offer. We have companies we can refer out to as far as doing the leveling beforehand. It's not something, not only logistically, but liability wise, that we wanted to get into. And again, this probably goes back to streamlining your offerings. I know that we probably could make money on this, but obviously there's a big capital investment in leveling the ground, getting the equipment that would be necessary for that kind of a process. So we refer that out. I would say the vast majority of our clients do not do that because their ground is mostly level. And if it's mostly level, we can make small adjustments here and there to make the ground more level. It just wasn't something, again, there's plenty of companies out there that could do the earthwork part of the process. I didn't necessarily want to step on their toes. I'd rather partner with them to let them do what they do really well, and then come in afterwards with a nice prepped ground and put the pool on top of that. So it's not something we do ourselves, but we have some sister partner companies that we will refer out to if it's absolutely necessary, which in most cases it's not, but occasionally we'll send a client there before we come and install the pool.
Yeah. So what are some of and thank you for all of that. That makes perfect sense. I think the liability thing is a really strong factor. You could totally offer it, but simplifying the business model as much as you can, because it was such a headache. So it is something it could cost you a lot more time and then be an extra layer of liability for you with the customers. So when it comes to, as you've scaled this, as you've started to go into more homes, what does the output look like? Like, how much time does it take when you think, okay, we have a new customer? How many hours on average are you investing into that client for the whole season?
Yeah, I think there's a couple answers to that. One is the perfect scenario where everything goes perfectly, and then one's reality. Most of our installations at this point do go quite smoothly. I can give people maybe an understanding of our learning curve in the process. First time we got pools delivered, we installed one in my backyard, the very first pool from Now Pools. I believe there was 5 of us that were working on the installation, and I think it took us about 5 hours to get it done. Now, that's fairly extreme. We were trying to really understand each step and component and every aspect of the equipment and all that stuff. However, what I can say now is that if I needed to, I could put that same pool up in about an hour to an hour and a half by myself. So there's a steep learning curve when it comes to above ground pools, and we are much better at it now than we were previously. I would say on average, each weekly cleaning ends up being anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what's going on in the yard and what storm blew in and things like that. And as far as that goes, the actual physical labor, we probably have about 5 hours a month, call it, between install and takedown and all that stuff. Actual labor from our team is about, call it 5 hours a month or so. Now, on the back end, my background is pretty heavily steeped in automation. And so I come from an operational background, and I think that's one of the things that has allowed us to, quite honestly, keep the lights on and keep learning and keep making mistakes, is that we have most of our systems automated, and that has allowed me to jump out there into areas that I don't understand, pool chemistry and things like that, that we've been able to make sure that the client is taken care of, because the sales agreements are all automated, and email marketing and text messages and things like that are really on autopilot. And so it's allowed us to stay leaner as a company, but also to spend more energy on the areas that we didn't fully understand and had to come up with solutions for, because it was a new problem that we couldn't copy someone else on. So that's been part of our key to success, is really automating as much as possible up front, so that it freed up our time to be able to lean into the areas that we weren't so smart at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What has been your most unexpected cost? Like, I'm sitting here thinking, kind of crunching numbers. You have the storage. How many pools are you storing in there? Have you had to expand that cost? Does it average out? At what point did you become profitable? Was it a certain amount of clients that you had? Or is it just, this is the pricing you guys have right now, you are profitable with each customer, so now it's just a matter of scale? Did that make sense?
Yeah. So our profitability, maybe it makes sense after you explain it, but we'll take it very simply. The first year you buy a pool to install at a client's house, with all the labor and the equipment that goes into it and the pool costs, it's kind of a break even. We're basically paying for the pool in the first year. The beauty of our model is that for that first year, we can reuse the pool or potentially buy a new liner to replace for the pool. And then it becomes significantly more profitable those following years. And so basically, to break it down into the purchase year, so whenever we purchase that pool, we pay for the pool itself. We make a little bit of extra money, but a lot of that's spread out into overhead and equipment for the company and all that stuff. But then it becomes a lot more profitable every following year that we have that pool in our warehouse. We still have pools that we are putting up year after year that are from our very first year in 2020. So they're 5+ years old, and the equipment still works well. Not that we haven't thrown out equipment or pool supports and things like that. But for the most part, most of it will last for several years, and then we can make more and more money each year. We kind of reuse that and redeploy that equipment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. And so I mean, I know this is like advanced into the future, but when somebody starts a franchise, can they anticipate that same thing? Like year one, you're
Yeah.
just investing into product or you could just say as you buy the franchise, you're going to just have these overhead costs. And yeah, it'll be like a couple years until you have a pretty good profitable window. Or is there any way to offset that I can't really see a workaround to it apart
Yeah.
from having higher prices.
Sure. If we could charge double the cost, we could pay things off a whole lot quicker. But yeah, I think you're right. It's probably the same kind of financial curve that I alluded to in the last question. Basically, being able to ideally pay off the equipment in year one and then start to make a profit in the following years is really where I think the expansion model, whatever that looks like, whether it's franchising or a different type of environment, that's how it actually starts to make money. That it's probably lean the first year and then starts to really be beneficial financially following years.
I saw something on your website, like special events in addition to your subscription. Do you guys do a lot of that? Is that a way to even offset and have the same pool that you can reuse multiple, like having a jump house business, but a pool? Is that something that does really well? Is it something that really gives you that boost in profitability?
Yeah, I would say it's a smaller part of our subscription or our offering. We don't do a ton of it, again, because right now, I think it will be bigger as we go on. However, people just aren't looking for it necessarily yet. And so we have done some pretty cool events. We've done some concerts. We had police canine event where the dogs jumped into one of our pools at the end of their run. It was pretty cool. But we've done a handful of various different events and parties and things like that are very short term, kind of 1 to 2 day kind of events. I think there is more there. There's more possibility there, but most people aren't thinking about it in the event planning space. Partly that's on us. We need to make sure that we are part of their thought process early on to say, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a pool or a spa at our upcoming event? And that's part of the marketing stuff that we need to double down on and really get people thinking proactively so that we can grow that market in and of itself.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it. And I feel like I kind of looked at the prices. You could probably charge more than what you are, even for those special event pricing. I think it's hard when you measure it against your subscription where you're like, well, but it's only this much to have it for an entire month. But just that experiential thing. And I love that you also have another service on there for drive-in movies. There's so many people like myself who would benefit from not having to deal with it all summer. Even if you have like little kids and you don't want to deal with the danger or the fear of drowning or anything, just saying, let's have a 3-day weekend and let's set up the pool for 4th of July and pay $500. There's probably a lot of people who would spend the monthly just to have it for a few days. And I know it's like different labor, a lot of work to get it set up and everything, but as a consumer, I would say I would totally lean into that because I think it could do so much better too, just to offset some of the costs of when you're having to buy those pools too. I love it. I wouldn't have even
Yeah.
thought of that. I love that you have it listed for people to at least see the option, and you do have such a fun journey ahead to bring more of those marketing efforts and show people. Because again, I had never heard of anything like this. You are a forerunner in this. You're a pioneer of the space. So I'm excited to see what this looks like. We'll have to have you on again in a little bit and just see where things have grown and how you have really tapped into that marketing message to expand the business even further. But I think it's amazing what you've already accomplished in 5 short years, and it's really inspiring. And I think people can take this and say, what are other ways that this business model can be used? I see people doing Christmas lights, and it's a seasonal thing. And there's a lot more here just in the concept than just doing pools. So I love it. It's brilliant. The subscription model is one of my favorite. I think it's so smart. So thank you for answering all the nitty gritty questions because I definitely
Yeah.
had a lot of them.
It's not often that I get to nerd out on this stuff. People, around me, my wife included, have heard all this stuff before. So this is great. I appreciate the opportunity to nerd out on above ground pool subscriptions. It's a nice treat for me.
Of course. We'll have to be in touch because, again, I live in the desert of Utah. It's very hot here. We're looking for options. So this could be a really cool thing to bring to this area. And anybody listening, if you guys are like, hey, jump on that quicker than later, let's get some franchise opportunities going, reach out to Ross. Where's the best place for people to connect with you on that note?
Yeah, our website now is nowpools.com. Or you can also reach me on LinkedIn, Ross Novotny on LinkedIn, and that'd be great. Love to connect with your audience as well and just explore opportunities with folks that might be interested.
Cool. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I appreciate everything you've shared. I'm glad you got to geek out. It was fun for me too.
Thank you, Kristen.